if you're a university, there is certainly a benefit to saying, look, we require community service of our students, but at the same time, if you are requiring it of people, are you missing the point in a certain regard? Because shouldn't people be entering into this voluntarily and because they're doing it, as Sarah said, for the right reasons? Abby?
I agree. That definitely is. It's a kind of a conundrum because you want people to want to volunteer because they want to, not because they're being told to. But like I said earlier, I think sometimes people just need a little bit of a push, and they need to know that there is a need and that they are able to fill it. And I think once people get into a volunteer program and they look around and they realize what they're capable of giving and getting back in return, as she mentioned, then they, even if they're hesitant to start volunteering, it becomes something that they are wanting to do.
Sarah, your thoughts?
You know, Leslie mentioned earlier that almost 100% of college-bound high schoolers are involved in voluntary service. I think part of that is that a lot of high schools are requiring that, and I think there are a lot of benefits to that. At the college level, though, I'm not in support of requiring volunteering or requiring community service, and those are two very different things. I want students to enter into a service opportunity because they're choosing to do that. And one thing, it's one thing in a co-curricular setting, but in a curricular setting, and I know Leslie has a lot of experience with this at SPIA, if a student is engaged in a course that has a service learning component or community-based research, they should know that going in, that community-based work is a part of their learning opportunity, and it's not required volunteering, it's required service, and it's pedagogy, a way for students to learn and a way to serve the community.
Leslie?
There are two sides to volunteering. One are the motives of the volunteer, but the other are the opportunities. And I think it's really incumbent on universities like IU and lots of others, including a lot of the nation's charities, to help create opportunities, to encourage students to exercise their better natures, to go out and volunteer. Students come to Bloomington from all around the world. They don't know our community well. And to the extent we have ways by which students can find out about the community and can give back, we will increase the rate of volunteering. The Provost's office has asked SPIA and a group of our students to work this year looking at all the different ways IU as an institution enables students especially, but also faculty and staff to be engaged in their communities. And we hope to have some very positive recommendations of how we can increase our already high rate.
I'm glad you mentioned charities because I got to thinking that in terms of the recession and how it affects volunteerism, there are a lot of organizations out there for which people can volunteer that are funded through grants or funded through endowments or things like that. And it would strike me that as the money supply has shrunk or tightened, it might be difficult to get money to these volunteer organizations to keep them going. Is that something that you have, each of you has found?
We've certainly seen an effect of the recession on nonprofits, but remember, volunteers give nonprofits things that money can't buy. That is to say, a willing person, often with some skills, to help the organization achieve its mission. You do need money to properly manage and equip volunteers sometimes, but you can also do an awful lot without it, and especially during this recession, nonprofits and charities have been looking for those ways.
Sarah, what about something like the Bonner program?
Absolutely. You know, I think that nonprofit organizations have been very resourceful and creative in identifying and utilizing resources forever, and especially in a time as the recent few years. You know, the Bonner Scholars Program mobilizes students to be involved in the community for 10 hours a week, and that's a significant commitment. And we see that the organizations in Greencastle and Putnam County that we're partnering with are utilizing Bonner Scholars as interns or even part-time staff members, and that is even more so in the summer when students are doing full-time internships with nonprofit organizations. So it's an incredible resource, I think, if organizations are able to sponsor students to work with them.
Abby, earlier you mentioned advertising and the need to get the word out. Has the proliferation of things like Facebook and Twitter and things like that, free potential advertising markets, helped volunteer organizations that you've been a part of?
I believe so, and with what you were saying about money, you know, I believe that people are just the best resource that there is, and of course programs do need money to run, but getting the people to come through Facebook or whatever other means, getting the people to show up, to talk to the kids, to do the activities, you know, that's just the best resource there is. And even for some of these kids that I've met in Bloomington, getting the chance just to spend 10 minutes talking to a college student is just enough to make their week.
Leslie, you were
I
nodding
think
your
those
head.
are all very important, but you know what? The single most important reason people give when they're asked why they didn't volunteer, it's because nobody asked me. As simple as that. Whether it's through Facebook and Twitter or face-to-face or any way, what's important is to ask people to volunteer.
Real quick, in 15 seconds each, if you had to ask something of a volunteer that you met tomorrow on the street to do more for volunteering or to get the word out, what would you ask them to do if you did have to ask them something?
Find 10 more people to help them.
All right, Sarah, your thought?
I would ask a volunteer to connect her or his direct service with issues of social justice and public policy to connect what they're doing with larger systemic issues.
All right, and Abby, what about from the student perspective?
Tell a friend.
And do you find that that's a message that gets out to your friends, even those who don't volunteer on a daily or weekly basis?
Absolutely. The whole college experience is one that's very social, and you want to meet people, you want to make friends, you want to be with your friends, and you know, if your friends are volunteering, there's a good chance you'll want to join them. So.
All right. Well, my thanks to the three of you. I wish we had more time to talk about it, but you three, I think, have done a real nice job getting around all the many issues. So my thanks to you, and my thanks also to my co-host this evening, Shamika Neely. Shamika, thanks.
Thanks, Dan. It was a pleasure.
Please do send us your questions for next month's InFocus program at infocus@indiana.edu is our email address. You can also leave a comment or see portions of this show by visiting our website, indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. And thanks to you for watching and listening. Have a nice night.
Production support for InFocus is provided by Hoosier Energy, providing electricity for Central and Southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com, and by viewers like you. Thank you.